The imagery surrounding Christmas is so familiar, it's easy to think it has always been like this. But although some form of winter solstice celebration has taken place since pre-Christian times, Christmas, as we know it, is in fact fairly recent. The Victorians have a lot to answer for. This is the drawing room of an English middle-class home from 1870 at the Geffrye Museum in East London. The Geffrye has a permanent display of period rooms spanning from 1630 to 1998, and at Christmas they decorate each according to the festive style of its time. Christmas cards and crackers are also Victorian innovations, and although the decorated tree first came to England from Germany with Queen Charlotte, the German wife of George III, the trend really took off under Victoria and Albert, the far more popular couple. In 1848, a picture of the royal family gathered around the Christmas tree at Windsor was published in the Illustrated London News, capturing the public imagination. However, although the Christmas tree may be a relatively new addition, people decorated their homes with evergreens long before the advent of Christianity for the winter solstice. As well as symbolising the return of the sun, evergreens were thought to have magical powers and offer protection from evil spirits. Evergreens were adopted by early Christians, for whom they symbolised everlasting life. Like their pagan ancestors, they too believed these plants had special powers, and these beliefs carried through the ages. This 1695 parlour is decorated with rosemary and bay, which symbolised remembrance and valour. Indeed, many festive traditions date back a long time. Eating and drinking too much, for instance, is nothing new. The table of this 1630 parlour is laid for the New Year's Day feast. Sweets like these would have been particularly special, since sugar was an expensive luxury. Each age has remodelled Christmas in its own image. For the Victorians, it was a time to celebrate wholesome family values, but for their Elizabethan predecessors, it had been a far more raucous affair, a time for feasting, gaming and gambling. The Puritans, of course, didn't like this kind of debauchery, and in 1644 they passed an Act of Parliament banning Christmas celebrations. Even attending church was outlawed. Although some festivities returned with the restoration of the monarchy in 1660, Christmas was a more subdued occasion than it had been, as you can see from this room in 1745.
I think it was the Victorians really that kick-started the reappropriation and reinvigoration of various Christmas celebrations. They kind of looked back to the earlier Elizabethan festivities, and there were fond comparisons between Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth, and they took some of those traditions to do with decorating the house, with feasting, drinking, but they sort of cleaned them up a little bit. They made them a little bit tidier for their own age. The Christmas tree for the Victorians was about children. The idea is that it would be hung with fruits, with sweets, with small gifts, and they also started the custom of having presents under the Christmas tree. And the focus becomes very much about children, and that's the focus, I suppose, for lots of Victorian families on Christmas Day, the fun of the celebration for the children in the home. In the 17th century, Christmas was a religious festival, but it wasn't the most important of the religious festivals. And really what was important about Christmas, those 12 days, was that it was a time for licensed misbehaviour, for drinking, for gambling, for feasting, for playing with your neighbours, for having your dependents in to feed them and feast them. The focus wasn't necessarily just the birth of Christ. I think there's certainly the opportunities for Christmas to be more commercial than it has been in the past. We have so much more wealth now, so much more is available. But traditionally, Christmas has always been about giving goods or alms, about drinking, about touches of gluttony. I don't think it's ever been this kind of pure religious ceremony that sometimes people might imagine.
Christmas has been reinvented many times over the years, and it continues to change. It hasn't always been an exclusively religious occasion, but it's clear that as British society grows more secular, Christmas has become less about Christ. So what does Christmas say about us today? While big budget movies and mainstream pop music may be happy to cash in on holiday cheer, contemporary art's fraught relationship with all things festive is telling. Tate Britain no longer commissions an annual Christmas tree, but when it did, artists responded with a cool, often critical detachment. In 1997, Michael Landy put his tree in a bin, and in 2002, Tracey Emin did away with hers altogether, donating the money to charity and installing a scruffy notice where the tree would have been.
While such responses may tap into a suspicion some of us hold about the sham of Christmas in a secular age, there has long been a need for a bit of midwinter merriment, and that shows no sign of abating.